Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6 p.m. on May 23rd, 2023. And we acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded traditional territory of Yakutat, and we recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following staff recommendation: that if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time that quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. Moved by Councillor Ramadas, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda and any late items. Moved by Councillor Audie Kelly, seconded by Councillor Schussman. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And before we move on to the adoption of the minutes of the previous council meeting, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that it's National Public Works Week and to recognize our dedicated public works professionals for all they do to make our community a wonderful place to live. Public work professionals do the sometimes unglamorous work needed to protect, maintain, and improve the city's infrastructure, providing our community with the essential services that ensure we are healthy, safe, and have a high quality of life. I would like to thank our team of public workers for all they do and their dedication to this work. And on a personal note, I wanted to commend those public works employees and fire services who participated in the equipment showcase at the Aquatic Center last week. It was great to get to know some of them personally, and I got a real appreciation of their individual commitments to excellent work. So it was a great opportunity for me personally. And now I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting of council held May 9th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Schussman. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.73 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the issuance of the permit. Any speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. So I'll ask Ms. Rose, is there anyone at the specified place or online who's indicated they'd like to speak?
No, Your Worship, no one online or in person wishing to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. And now it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our MLA for Kootenay East, Mr. Tom Shapitka, as our delegation for the evening. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors and staff, great to be here. I've met most of you offline, one form or another. Congratulate you for your appointments, but I'll do it in the formal proceeding right now, and congratulations to you all. Time has gone really fast. We're all pretty busy, but it's been quite some time since you've got your appointments, and so you're probably well versed and well saturated in all the knowledge you need to know to run the municipality correctly. This is more of a meet and greet for me, just to say hi, but also more importantly just to put some feelers out there on what we can do here as a region to be better. We all know that we live in probably the most beautiful place in the world, and we want to keep it that way. So my staff, Jonah Gallants is with me right now, and Chris Dickinson, she's somewhere, probably picking up the slide somewhere else, but we started a little tour here of the Elk Valley, starting our first day here in Fernie, and we had a Fernie Chamber of Commerce. I want to give some credits to the Fernie Chamber for hosting us there and providing a space. And I can tell you, your worship, you've got one engaged community. We had a lineup at the door when we first opened up our, what time? Was it 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock? 2 till 6, or 2 till 5:45. I ran in here last minute, but we never stopped having people coming in. So we talked to probably, I don't know, probably at least 14, 15 groups that came in those 4 hours. And just for the council and your worship's information, talked a variety of things, and mostly the councilors at this table probably know most of these issues. Galloway lands was one of them, RCR timber landing, looking for secondary access roads, traffic issues, cyclist concerns on cattle guards for those that ride street bikes on areas of the outside of Fernie that have cattle guards on. Corbin Road land access issues, childcare was another one that was brought up several times. PSC, not in Alberta, so folks go there to shop, so that's addressing tourism. Backcountry camping being abused, so that's putting some more teeth in our legislation and our ticketing and our enforcement on making sure those that leave it not as nice as what they saw it when they first got there, that they get punished in some form. AT, land consultation, working with an AT nations to address issues that we all hear about. Now, that'll be the last one I mentioned, and I'm sure you all know what that is. Cross-border medical, that's another big issue, obviously getting that access to healthcare in Alberta or providing that service here at home. One of the two have to give way, because right now we're seeing unprecedented amount of people as our population ages, especially in the cancer area, that we're getting shipped out, I would say, to be accurate, to areas like Victoria, Vancouver, that's just not workable for people. Not only is there the obvious geographic challenges, especially in the wintertime, being 6 mountain passes and 1,000 kilometers away, but there's also a financial impact. I've talked to many people that would have to give up their jobs if you're doing radiation treatment for 2 months or 3 months. You need that support, and of course, the farther away you come from your hometown, the less family support you have. So there's those issues for sure. And with the Métis consultation, they're looking to partner to to bring affordable housing, not only here, but also address some of the other issues that we're looking at. Performing Arts Center, one fellow talked about Performing Arts Center, if that was doable in the new school that's being proposed to be built. We need some clarity on that. He mentioned that would be a real plus for the community for sure. Government permits and wait times on not only housing developments, but also on natural resource extraction was another issue that was brought up. But the number one, and I'm sure you all know what it is, and that's the housing shortage. And if you think about it, and you look at this long list that I have here, it really does tie into housing. Housing isn't a social issue, it's an economic one. And if we're gonna support this community, if we're gonna transition away from the natural resources that we've been blessed for so many years, and that will be coming close to an end, we're gonna have to transition quickly to tourism and other niche markets that Fernie can handle. So that comes with bringing people, and that obviously comes with affordable housing. Now, living in the valley, land is at a premium here, and it's not as accessible as in some other communities. So how do we do that? Obviously, it's not one fix. We're going to need to have all hands on deck on this issue, whether it's bylaw changes to encourage more high-density housing, whether it's to work with developers to incentivize, to make sure that the process is seamless, so they can get the permits they need in a timely manner to make the projects, affordable for those at the end of the run, because time is money, and the more time you spend on these projects, the more money it ends up costing the consumer in the end. So it was a lot of really good chat. What I really got out of it, though, was a couple people mentioned something that was really simple, and I think it's something we all talk about, but we never put pen to paper on it, and that's just, what is our short, medium, and long-term vision, not only just for Fernie, but for the region as a whole, for the whole Valley, because they all tie together. And communities could help other communities furthering some some of these issues such as housing, daycare. You know, we can work together, and if we do work together, I'm thinking we could probably do some great things. So just spitballing with these folks, I thought maybe it would be something that the council could consider. And I'll be going to Spard and Elford in the next couple of days here, and I'll be making the same pitch, is making some working group that involves the elected officials from the three communities. We might want somebody from the South Country, from Jaffrey, Grasmere area, and what those short, medium, and long-term goals should look like. Put some recommendations, put that out to public to see if they align with what the public wants. Because some of these solutions we have are going to take years. We need to get those shovels in the ground now. We need to build that infrastructure for high-density housing. The government right now seems to think that it should be legislated that we should be approving permits for high density. Well, what does it look underneath the asphalt? What does your sewer and your water look like? Those aren't easy fixes. If the idea is a great one, but how practical is it? So I think when you have these issues like some of these timber landing and Galloway lands, I'm not going to say they're right, wrong, or indifferent, but when the public gets up in arms, and it's been quite a firestorm, I think I could argue that. Maybe we should have that vision in place so people know what's coming down the pipe. If it's been planned for, if we have the right secondary roads in place, if we have access for emergency vehicles or fire trucks or things like that. So all good stuff. I just wanted to kind of just throw it there, and if the councilors or you, your worship, have any questions on how I could make things better or help you in any way, shoot away, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, thanks for that, Tom, and thanks for highlighting what an engaged community we have, because we certainly feel that as well. We're getting no end of feedback and input from people, which is great. It's exactly why we're here, and we very much appreciate our community's perspective and input. And in terms of a regional approach, we are working with our sister communities in the valley on starting with a sort of joint economic development initiative for all three communities, funded through the RDK. So all three communities in Area A and Area B actually has asked that they can also participate. As you say, the South Country and Jaffrey and those folks, because they have a lot of people who, amongst other things, would like to work but don't have transportation, for example, to work in the valley. So there are some obvious wins available to us, but that's also a good springboard for a larger conversation about what the vision is for the region, which is, given recent events, is something I think we really need to agree upon, which could be a challenge on its own, but I think that's where we need to go. I'll ask council, any questions for MLA? Councilor Schuster.
Not a question, more of a comment, but we've definitely heard about the area functioning as a region more and sort of playing off each other's strengths. And I would say that one of the things holding us back in that regard is definitely a lack of adequate transport for people. So yeah, that's I know they've ran over capacity or at capacity and turned people away several times this year. So yeah, that will help us out a lot.
Yeah, no, I heard the situation is so dire here that there are small businesses that are actually, the owners are driving their workers from Cranbrook out here and back and forth every day. So transportation is a huge deal, and just getting that affordable housing here is, and everywhere. I mean, it's in Cranbrook, you're not alone. No. You know that. So I'm not pitting anything specific on any one region. It's a major issue right across the province. So rents have become higher. How do you get an entry-level position to pay $1,600, $2,000 a month rent? You can't do it. So, and I know this is things you heard a million times before, so I'm not shedding any new light on anything here, but I think, as long as we can work together and, feel free to reach out to the office and, I'm a lowly MLA in opposition, so I mean, I don't put much value to that as you want, but I do work across party lines. I mean, one thing I wanted to highlight that I put forward is a private member's bill that brings in, and this is something really specific to this region and across the province, but and that's put a private member's bill forward to incorporate a independent funding model to address wildlife populations and habitat. It's something that's just grossly overlooked every time I see a budget. I've seen 7 or 8 budgets, and I bet you I've heard the word wildlife maybe twice out of 8 budgets. And we need to get a handle on it. We've been so lucky and so fortunate. I mean, we used to be called the Serengeti of North America here in the Elk Valley, just for the number of species and that we have, unlike any other in the continent. And we've had it so good for so long that we've just been complacent with it. Now we're facing a crisis. The only good thing that comes from a crisis is people do work together. The Fish, Wildlife, and Habitat Coalition would be a prime example. It's about 25 organizations across the province, everything from Wildsight to Yukon to Yellowstone to BC Wildlife Federation, the Trappers and Guide Outfitters of BC. So opposite sides of the spectrum that probably would never have sat in the same room before are now collaborating to address this issue of preserving wildlife and our habitat. And this private members bill does just that. So it puts private funding arm's length from government, so that doesn't go to general revenue. Right now, land use fees, whether it's hunting fees or recreational fees, goes to general revenue, and then it gets kicked out, not always at 100%, not always to the region where it comes from. So this would identify that, and then through that independent funding model, you could leverage that with industry. I've talked to industry a lot. I've talked to tech, I've talked to Canfor in the past, and other big companies, and they'd be all for supporting some form of contribution, whether it's over a certain commodity price at a certain price per ton of coal, say, they would chip into this funding model, as long as and then of course philanthropy could come from that, First Nation government, federal government. I call it a hook, bullets, and boots tax. So that would be a dedicated tax. This is just me now. I'm not putting any policy in front of anyone, but I'm just saying that they do it in other jurisdictions across the world where they do dedicate a tax, a small tax from any kind of recreational use, whether it's an RV or a tent or a pair of hiking boots or whatever. Places like Wisconsin, I believe, Montana definitely does it, Dakota, North and South Dakota, and trying to think, Colorado. Anyways, it's proven law. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. And I've even talked to the sports outfitters, and they said they'd be all for it. We've got a person concerned about the 7% PST here, and that they don't have it, people go over. But a lot of people would buy local if they knew that money was going right back locally. So I think there's a lot of ideas out there with this this private funding model that I put forward as a private members bill. So if anybody wanted to support that, I'd be all for it.
Thanks for that, Tom. Any other questions for Councilor McIsaac?
Thank you, Worship. Not a question, a speech. First of all, welcome, thank you. It's very nice to see you, Mr. Speaker. I can't let you go without at least making our pitch from the housing side. I'm very encouraged to hear that you're working hard on cross-political lines on that particular challenge. And I know you've already heard it already, but sitting around the table, I think it's really important to reiterate that the housing problem here, it isn't a housing problem, it's an economic problem, it's a childcare problem, it's a teaching problem, it's a problem in the hospital, it's a problem in the grocery store. There is not one single aspect in our community that is untouched by this particular problem. It can't be a point of contention. It has to be a point of agreement. And we desperately need the provincial government to make some moves in this area. You've already heard about Galloway. Here we are, another multi-million-dollar houses on giant lots right on the border of our community, which are going to ultimately someday tax our sewer system and tax our water and tax our roadway, and we will have no say in it. The decision was made primarily by people who live 100 kilometers from here. We can't solve the housing problem by building houses the same way we've been doing all along and then expect a different result. We need some kind of support at the regional level and at the municipal level that says, stop building giant multi-million-dollar houses for people that live in other provinces. You have to start building multifamily dwellings. You need densification, you need diversity. That message has to come through across the board, clearly and unanimously. It can't be ambiguous. And step down on the soapbox. Yeah, no, it would be difficult to overstate how desperately it's needed. And I know that you know this already, but I just felt it's really important that you hear from this table.
No, thanks, Councilor McIsaac. I agree 100%. Once again, we need those short, medium, long-term visions. And it seems to me a lot of the times it's reactionary, not proactive, that we're losing the focus here. You know, a demand gets built to allow people to develop these multi-million-dollar homes. If we were more proactive and took that demand away, perhaps that wouldn't be the case. Also, OCPs obviously need to work and bring us up to speed. And that would be a collaborative approach to get all the valley together to see that vision, to see what do we want to develop this, because they're not going to do it here, they're going to do it somewhere else. How do we want this valley to look like in the next 100 years? You know, it's a deep dive, but I think we've got enough smart enough people that, maybe not me, but certain people from this table to do it. But yeah, I think it's really critical what you just said, that we need to take a farther view from this and not just look at it.
Thank you. It's definitely an all hands on deck problem for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. MLA Shubika, any timeline on when you want to create those working groups across the valley?
You know, I'm gonna have some discussions with some other mayors and council, and you know, Worship mentioned there are some collaborative efforts going on right now, and I wasn't to say there wasn't, but I think the public would like to see if those collaborative processes that are going on right now be, you know, highlighted maybe a little more, to say there are, you know, have no fear, we're working on this issue. I think it could go a long way, and you know, I'd be interested in being involved as well. Not that I need more work on my plate, but this is a legacy. This is something that we all were elected to do, right? To look after the future of our children, our children's children, and all that. So this is something I could definitely wrap myself around for sure. And you know, if we could find some solutions and a strategy that would work, that would be great.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, Tom, MLA Shubika, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And don't think of yourself as a lowly opposition politician, because you know it's all about public service, and we really respect the efforts you put in representing our area. So we very much appreciate it. And you know, going all the way back to our period of COVID and your attendance at those update meetings, it was very valued. So appreciate your efforts and keep up the good work. And to the extent you can, to all these topics, yeah, working across party lines to get things done is of extreme importance to all of us. So thank you.
For sure. No, thanks. Those were some tough times during COVID. And obviously, there's going to be more ahead. So let's just keep together. And is there anything else that we need to say? No. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks.
Okay, well, on that note, we will move on to item 8.1. And I'll ask Mr. McConnell if you could read the recommendation.
Certainly. The staff recommendation is that council adopt zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2488, 2023.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, second by Councilor McIsaac. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And then item 8.2, again, if you don't mind, sir, I'll ask you to read the first recommendation.
Sure. That council adopt Cedars Sanitary Sewer Lift Station Local Area Service Establishment Bylaw number 2495, 2023.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor McIsaac. Any discussion? Councilor Nathan.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I just wanted to say, give kudos to the planning department on this one, specifically Mr. Lance, and for initiating the solution. It's great. I hope to see more of these in the future.
Thank you, great point, thanks very much. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
And if I want to read 8.3 as well?
If you don't mind.
Sure. And the follow-up to that is that council adopt Cedars Sanitary Sewer Lift Station Local Area Service Parcel Tax, Parcel Tax Bylaw number 2496, 2023.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is also unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 9.1, a report from our project engineer, update of municipal ticket information bylaw, fine for wildlife traffic. Ms. Lang?
Thank you, I'll just share my screen. Why does mine look different? Correct. There we go, all right. Good evening, everyone. Today I'm here to follow up on the April 25th council meeting request to update the current penalty of the Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw, Appendix 12, Waste Regulation Bylaw number 1845, the first line, which is the accumulation, placement, storage, or collection of wildlife attractants in a manner that attracts wildlife. Under our current MIT bylaw, a fee of $50 is charged to anyone who sets out wildlife attractants in a manner that attracts wildlife. There is no escalation for subsequent infractions. The recommendation here is based on a review of municipalities that have similar issues. Two big changes. One, the fines reset every year, so every calendar year. And secondly, there is a greater second and subsequent offense fine. Here are the similar clauses from the other municipalities. Alford calls out bears specifically. Others are just wildlife like we discussed. Not everyone escalates their fines. So it really is a mixed bag. And there are some also alternative options available. However, our recommendation is that we adopt a two-tier fine structure. The first offense of $250 and the second and subsequent of $500. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lang. Any questions? Councilor.
Thank you. I'm curious what staff's rationale is for going with a two-tiered fine versus a three-tiered fine.
Mayor Milligan, through council, really, we did offer that as another recommendation, as an alternative. It just seemed to be less difficult.
Thank you.
And Ms. Lang, if I understand the language correctly, every subsequent offense, so the first offense is $250, every subsequent offense is additional $500, so it could be several times a year to a repeat offender.
Correct. And also, depending on what the wildlife does, you may have to be charged for replacement or repair of your cart as well, so that could be up to another $220 on top of that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Lang? Would you mind reading that recommendation for now?
Staff recommendation is that council adopt a two-tier fine structure and municipal ticket information bylaw for the line item accumulation, placement, storage, or collection of wildlife attractants in a manner that attracts wildlife. A, first offense in a calendar year, $250, second and subsequent offenses in a calendar year, $500.
Mover. Councilor Shoesmith. Seconded by Councilor McIsaac. Any discussion? Councilor Hamilton.
I'm curious to hear around the table whether or not people would be willing to entertain the motion of changing it to a three-tier, because we've heard time and time again about the deleterious effects of wildlife attractants in our community, and all of the efforts that we're going, both as a municipality cutting down community fruit trees, but also in a lot of the planning to minimize our attractants, and whether or not really coming down, I don't want to say coming down hard, it's the wrong language, but really making it onerous on people to try and teach them the lesson. It's been a number of years where we've not been too forceful with it, and I would like to hear if there's any other support for amending that to the third offense and subsequent is $1,000.
Councilor Hamilton.
I'm in support,
You would support that?
yeah.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Nix.
Yeah, I feel the same way as, thank you, Mayor Morgan. I feel the same way as Councillor Hamilton. I should have moved option number 3. I was thinking.
Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I feel like I'm in an enviable position of having to take the other side just for the sake of argument. I'm actually pretty okay with the proposed motion for the two-tier. I think by the time a person's been fined twice, they've already spent $750. I think it is important to have the fine in line with the actual crime, as it were. As we start to get up through tier, I presume we mean $1,000. If there's a fourth one, it's another $1,000. That's an awful lot of money, and we do want it to be sufficient to be a deterrent and to be a problem, but I have to imagine that getting to $750 is probably meeting that. Adding a third one just is increasing administration that we have to keep track of for individuals, so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there's a big win in adding the third tier.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that position, and there is always the opportunity to revisit this if we realize over time that it is not a sufficient deterrent, then we can revisit it, but I tend to share Councilor McIsaac's view that we're probably there now and would like to see this, deploy this and see how it works. Councilor Shoesmith and then Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. For most people, $500 is after tax 2 or even 3 days' wages. That does actually quite sting a lot. And a lot of people aren't in any position where they have control over when a trash pickup happens or when they have to go to work or pick their children up. So getting more punitive may be putting people in really horrible positions or forcing them to begin to use dumpsters or something else, which really isn't all that fair. I feel $500 is something that even somebody who's well off would notice, but any more would actually have the potential for being crushing for somebody who's hard up. So, thank you.
Councilor Nixon and then, I'm sorry, no, it was Councilor Ramadas, then Councilor Nixon, then Councilor Hardy.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was just wondering, like, to your point about, revisiting this in the future, if need be, why don't we do it preemptively right now? Like, that would be my line of argument here. Do it now, and if in the future we think it is excessive, we can always revert back. Could we?
I think our tendency would be the opposite. Like, that once it's in place, we're less likely to roll it back than we are to step it up. Personally, I think that's sort of institutional nature, if you will.
The only point here, Your Worship, is, it's how much are we valuing wildlife? Like, that's really the question here. $700,000, we don't know. All of it seems to be a small number when you think about the number of wildlife that we destroy sometimes, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, but I tend to also share Councillor Schusman's perspective. But one of the things we're trying to do is maintain a certain level of affordability in our community, and $1,000 is quite punitive, and my instinct is to stay with the 500 at the current upper limit and see how that plays out, and then revisit it if necessary. That's my personal opinion. I'll actually ask Councillor Audie Kelly to go first, and then Councillor Nixon.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of the 2 tiers as well. With financial times are really difficult right now. I just read an article today that Canadian debt is at some of its highest. So I think $500 would be quite punishing for some folks, and, you know, cause them to maybe not be able to pay for groceries. So I'd like to see us stay with the 2 tiers.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I came in here thinking that option 3 is the way to go. I hear a little bit of, you know, I agree with Councillor Ramadas, you know, having that, what is the price tag on a bear's life? I don't know what that is, but, you know, I can see going with the 2 tier because now what we have is 250 and then 500, and if they continue doing it, it's another 500, and then if they do it next month, it's another 500. So, you know, there's lots of opportunity there to crack down on to deter people from moving their health fund life out as well, or they're attracted to it.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
so I'm kind of wishy-washy.
I'm glad you said it.
Oh.
Councillor Schusman.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I would also add that, sort of following up on what Mayor Milligan said, it might be prudent to make a more gradual change and revisit things later in the right direction. It's fairly easy to do, whereas overshooting can often be a little bit more catastrophic. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I think I'll call the question. We haven't read that resolution?
Yes, you've got a mover and seconder on the resolution.
Thank you. All those in favor? And those opposed?
Sorry, Your Worship, of what, of the option that staff is
Options, yeah, the 2 tiers.
proposing?
Yeah.
Okay. You can repeat that again, so.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And thank you for the conversation, because I always think that's helpful. Item 9.2, Fire Hall Project Update and Planning Services Contract Award Report from Ms. Ware, our Manager of Engineering.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to provide an update on the Fire Hall project and the Fire Hall Planning Services Contract Award. So very briefly, some history on the project to frame this conversation. The 3rd Avenue Fire Hall had a long history of known hazards related to the facility, structure, and function. The engineering and architectural and safety reports between 1997 and 2020 ultimately led to it being decommissioned, and the Fernie Fire and Emergency Services Department temporarily relocated to the operations facility at 1492 Railway Ave, where it resides today. So tonight's staff report had a comprehensive list of all of that reporting that led to that decision in 2021 and that move. Most recently, just to highlight a couple, the 2020 council presentation by the Director of Operational Services indicated that the total estimated project cost to address those known safety concerns at the existing 3rd Ave Fire Hall was $2.41 million. And council did direct staff to proceed with project planning for a multi-use site on 2nd Avenue. And 2020 health and safety report by the city's safety manager concluded that staff safety was being compromised. And further to that, the 2021 report by Firewise Consulting set out a path forward for the Fernie Fire Station condition assessment of the 3rd Ave Fire Hall and the plan to move to the operations facility. And then in 2022, the Fernie Fire Hall Needs Assessment, completed by Firewise as well, provided sort of a framework for the requirements of a modern day fire hall and how that relates to the best practices and legislation in our province. And just to highlight some current operating concerns out of the 1492 Railway Ave, the old Public Works building where Fire and Emergency Services Department currently resides. It certainly does allow the fire department operations to continue and provides safer working conditions than those at the old 3rd Avenue Fire Hall. But it does come with a host of issues that relate to providing the desired level of service to the community, and some of those are highlighted here. One of the big ones being it requires firefighters to be housed in 2 separate buildings and utilize 2 spaces that are separated by code block gates and doors in poorly situated areas. So it does inhibit the efficient deployment of our fire services. It's also now housed on the east side of the tracks, which creates deployment challenges for auxiliary and career staff coming to the hall and then leaving the hall and being deployed back to the city to address the emergency. It also occupies space that is required for public works fleet functions and is currently restricting those operations that were planned out of that facility. It's not meeting industry standards to provide adequate facilities for training, decontamination, and amenities to attract and retain firefighters. It lacks adequate emergency backup power to maintain the operation in the event of a power outage. And then the old fire hall on 3rd Avenue is being used for storage of other departments' equipment, which is preventing the city from stewarding this asset in a more beneficial way to the community. So we issued an RFP for fire hall planning services on April 18th of this year and closed it on May 10th. And the opportunity was publicly advertised on BC Bid. And so the categories here are a summary of the scope of work that was included in that RFP, which included developing and implementing a terms of reference that would outline how the staff project team and a community advisory team would work together to advise on municipal priorities. It included the development of a community education strategy to build understanding of why the fire hall is required and what specifically needs to be in it. It asked the consultant to identify how they would support staff in engaging potential stakeholders, including issuing a public expression of interest that would formally provide an opportunity for any interested partners to identify themselves. And then after that opportunity has been provided, we can move forward with greater confidence that with what partnerships we may or may not have available to us. It also looks to update the space programming requirements and come up with a new conceptual facility layout on the selected site based on some further discussion and look at the existing work done on site selection to date. And then also focused on advancement of this project in alignment with the city's asset management policy and strategic organizational objectives. So staff received and reviewed 4 proposals from interested consultants, which I would say we consider that to be a successful RFP with 4 highly qualified and experienced firms. Is positive that they're interested in our work in Fernie. The breakdown of the evaluation or the weighting of each of the areas we evaluated their proposal on was their project understanding and methodology, their firm experiences and reference, and then the specific team members they've assigned to our project, as well as their fees. So the 4 firms that we've received proposals from are listed there, and the proposals ranged in prices from $54,000 to $178,000, so quite a range. And so following the staff evaluation committee's work, Arcadis received the highest rank by all members of the evaluation committee. And to highlight, their proposal was the highest price proposal at the $178,000 mark. And so the calculation compares their proposal price to the lowest valued proposal price. And so they only received 7.5% of that, 25% of the weighting that went towards the full evaluation. But their very high scores in all the other categories of the evaluation essentially showed value and justified the price that they were proposing for that work. Their proposal highlights a really excellent understanding of our local context and clearly demonstrates how they would align their work with the city's existing strategic objectives and asset management plan. The description of the tasks they provided to meet the deliverables that we were looking for was very clearly articulated, and as I mentioned, the value in it was evident. They proposed a realistic and what we think is an appropriate schedule to complete this amount of public engagement and internal staff engagement. And they proposed a team that is comprised of experts with significant recent and relevant experience to this project. And then they also had value-added services in a number of areas that some of the other proponents didn't, which would include areas such as transportation, engineering, and engagement specialists. So that is the recommendation for award of the contract to move this project forward. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Weir. Any questions? Councilman Guy, Councilman.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering, Your Worship, I'd like staff to expand on the engagement expertise. I feel like the development of the community education strategy is going to be an extremely key point in this. Most of the community hasn't had the opportunity to sit around this table and hear the ongoing discussion for the last 30 years with the needs and requirements and so on. So there's going to be a lot to come up to speed on. And I'm hoping that a very significant reason for the selection of this particular group is their expertise and experience in that particular area.
Your Worship, through to Councilor McIsaac, yes, that was definitely played a large factor in the selection of this proponent. Their engagement program alone, let me just double check the number before I say it, was $48,000. So the cheapest consultant, their whole service package was $54,000. So the value in their engagement program, or the dollars, speaks to the increased number of activities they proposed in the engagement area, as well. Within that 35% of the weighting criteria that we evaluated the firms on, 10% of it was specifically for their expertise of the key team members in engagement. And so a few of the other firms proposed to have their architects or engineers lead the charge on that area of the program, and we weighted higher the firms that included specialists with training in public engagement, as opposed to just the professional and technical services.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Councilor Ramsay.
Thank you, Worship. I have a question to Director there. In terms of timelines, what are we looking at here?
The timeline for this project would be through to January 2024. As currently proposed, but we have, there is some room for rework once you engage the consultant and confirm availability of staff and scheduling of the public engagement. I think will be a big component. A lot of them did front end that in the summer, which we do have some concerns about in terms of wanting to spread that out a bit longer to capture people on vacation and things like that. So tentatively January 24th, or 2024.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Another follow-up question I have is, not trying to penny pinch here, I certainly see that this particular consultant scores better than the others, but just trying to work out the scenarios here. If I were to go with the $54,000 guy, whoever that is, what's the risk? Like, what could go wrong if we had the cheapest consultant here?
Your Worship, through to Councilor Ramirez, I think some of the issues are, the cheapest consultant didn't include any costing consulting, so one of the outcomes of this project is to try to get a ballpark cost and a funding strategy to come up with those funds to build this. So For example, if we selected the cheapest proponent, we wouldn't have included the costing component. And then also, like we've discussed, the public education and engagement piece was substantially diminished. So I feel like the risks of not including that are, frankly, if we have to go to referendum and you haven't built any community support on why we need the fire hall and what has to be in it and why it costs X amount of money, then I think we might be less successful in accomplishing a facility that meets the community's needs, because we wouldn't have spent the time building that understanding. Maybe another major risk.
Right, thanks,
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith and Councillor Nathan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, staff, I see that that comes out of the facilities renovations reserve. What else comes out of those reserves and how quickly are they replenished?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Shoesmith, that I can't answer that question. I don't know whether Director Logan or Director
Director
Burdett
Burdett is
is he
putting
on the
up his
line?
hand online. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Director Burdett.
Thank you, Councillor Shoesmith. Just trying to get to the right row on my spreadsheet here. Bear with me 1 second. So in terms of how it gets replenished, we currently budget 500,000 to be put into that reserve. And then in terms of what else comes out of it, it's usually, apologize, this is a big spreadsheet. So this year we've got 457,000 budgeted to come out of that. The majority of that are items like upgrades to our buildings, such as radon remediation or asbestos treatment, or the library's getting a new roof. So anyway, just things like that. Sorry, I'm a little scattered here today.
No, that is helpful. Councillor Shoesmith, follow?
No, thank you very much.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, you know, I feel really good about this, and I'm glad that staff is endorsing this, the one with the high public engagement. To the west of us, there was a fire hall planned to the far west of us. Well, not that far. To answer Councillor Ramadas's question, and that went horribly wrong and cost that community probably, I can't say it, time, as well as a lot of contention in the community. So I embrace that public engagement that we're doing here.
Thank
So
you.
it wasn't a question, just a statement.
No, and I tend to agree that in processes like these, the more robust public engagement we can do, the better. And we have a consultant firm that is almost led with that, which I think is key for our success here. So I'm certainly supportive. Any other comments? Councillor Ramirez, you have
One more question, Your Worship. Just looking at some of their hands-on experiences, it says Fire Center Business Case Study, Foothills County Regional Emergency Service Business Case Study. Like, what does that mean? Like, business case study, it's not some theory academic thing, is it? Or is it like hands-on experience for these guys?
Worship, through to Councillor Ramadassi, you're really testing my memory of the detailed examples of the proposals that I evaluated, but I believe that it's more of similar to a feasibility study or a planning stage study demonstrating why how the needs of that community would be met by the fire hall.
Okay.
In broader terms, as opposed to
That gives
specifically the funding.
That gives me a little bit more comfort, Your Worship. I was thinking it was some kind of a, business school case study or something.
No, the way I read it is they appear to offer the fullest suite from, as they say, soup to nuts in terms of public engagement through engineering and design and architectural support. So it seems like the best fit for what we want to accomplish. So. On that note, I'll ask Mr. McConnell, these are all long recommendations, so I think you really know.
It's really not the longest by any stretch.
No, that's true.
Okay, the staff recommendation is that a contract for the City of Fernie Fire Hall project be awarded to Arcadis Architects Canada, Inc. for $178,965, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute any necessary contract documents.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. We'll now move on to item 9.3, UBCM AM Asset Management Planning Grant, levels of service. And I don't think we have our Director of Asset Management here, Mr. Baranowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Director of Asset Management is currently en route to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference, and so I will handle a brief verbal presentation on the report on their behalf. This is a grant application to complement work that we have underway that Council will be aware of. We proposed the first phase of our level of service project to enable a better understanding of our current levels of service that we provide to the community, and then create a platform for us to then, and the next phase, engage with the community on their expectations on level of service. Those are essentially the two, at the highest level, the two different levels of service that are described by Ms. Jansen in the report. Being that there's a community level of service, that's the level of service the community wants, or desires, and expects out of our facilities, the assets that we shepherd on behalf of the community. Those are generally established through public consultation, master planning documents. We have some of those at a high level. We have some of those even at a more detailed level, but our current status is that we are not in a consolidated manner managing and reporting and analyzing on the level of service the community expects versus the level of service that we deliver. Separately, there's a technical level of service, and that's just the level of service that an asset is designed to provide based on its engineered design and its operating standards for its lifetime. So how much water is this source meant to produce for how long, at what quality? And those we have quite well defined in a number of places, but again, currently, we're not managing our level of service information in a consistent, centralized manner that allows us to report to council effectively and to the community, and then to engage with the community effectively on exactly what level of service we are legislatively required to deliver, what the community has said they want, and what we actually do, and identify where the gaps are and where we can improve our operations. Council had approved a budget of $10,000 for the first phase of our level of service project for this fiscal year. We have started that work with Ms. Jansen leading the way, engaged directly with Asset Management British Columbia, and the City of Cranbrook have partnered with us on some of this work. It's been really encouraging to engage with other municipalities and start working through more detailed analysis of our levels of service. We started talking about our parks, our playgrounds, our facilities like the Aquatic Center. Are we meeting our safety requirements? To what level are we delivering appropriate accessible parks? And to what level do our master plans say we'll do this versus what we hear anecdotally from the community? This grant provides some matching funding, and it increases our budget from $10,000, which is currently allocated, up to $15,000. It allows us to continue to engage with Asset Management BC, enables a on-premise, in-person facilitated session so that we can work with our CAMP, or our Capital Asset Management team, together on further level of service analysis and review, and then likely engage a consultant to help expedite this process wherever possible in terms of consolidating our technical and our community level of service information into a master document that can then allow us to move into the next phase, which would be engaging with the community either on a public consultation specific to level of services alongside the OCP, or an effort embedded within the OCP, and that scope of work needs to be determined, but that, again, is a future phase. We're simply seeking council's endorsement for this grant application for an existing project so we can maximize its benefit.
Thank you. Questions from Mr. Baranowski?
I jotted down two questions based on the report. First question, what happened, because this is a joint application with Cranbrook, what happens if only one of the councils passes the resolution?
I would anticipate then that we either would receive no funding, or we would scope down the project and only receive partial funding for the value add. I don't have a definitive answer, but I could go to UBCM to ask.
And then second question, looking at the budget breakdown, in the initial phase, it had Fernie 5,000, Cranbrook 4,000, but it appeared that it's split evenly as far as what staff were receiving. So I'm just curious how we ended up with that split, not a 50-50 split, 4,500, 4,500 split.
Your worship to council, I don't know the reason why there's the $5,000 gap in terms of how that cost share was divided.
Any other questions? Councillor Arundel.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just in terms of timeline seems to be my recurring question in this council meeting. Apologize for that. January 2024 is what it says when this will happen, is that correct? Well, it says OCP engagement starts in January 2024, so the work that is coming out of this would be available by January 2024, is that the timeline here?
And your worship to council, the outputs of this should be ready before January 2024 so that they can inform how we are going to engage with the community on service levels, both the technical services we deliver and the community service level expectations, either alongside that OCP kickoff, public engagement, visioning, or right within it as one major project. But I do know that we are currently actively engaged working with Cranbrook on the very first steps in phase one and booking our on-premise, on-site facilitated workshop and starting to discuss what consulting services we would need to continue moving this along at a faster clip. So I know our goal is to try and establish clear levels of service to enable better communication in our future budget rounds, but it may not be comprehensively complete. It's quite detailed when you start to break into it because we provide very many services and the documents governing them are myriad.
Yeah, and some of them, I think, are defined more by past practice than by any document anywhere.
Your worship, if I can, what we find is very much there are community expectations for a level of service, but that it's not defined in policy, in the OCP or in a master plan, anywhere. And so we manage many of our services on an ad hoc basis, whether it's the latest demand, what seems to be the trend, let's budget for that. And this is an opportunity to step back and comprehensively map those out. So we know what services we provide, what assets they're based on, what we must do in terms of work safe regulations, water quality regulations, et cetera. And do we have defined community expectations? And if not, how do we start to plug those in?
Councillor Shoesmith and then Councillor Audio.
On that, through your worship to staff, I had several questions here, but you managed to answer them all pretty clearly, so well spoken. Thank you.
If I can quickly, the credit has to go to Ms. Jansen on asset management and level of service because the report, as you read, is pretty comprehensive in terms of creating the groundwork for levels of service and how it relates to asset management in her portfolio, but also her work designing this path forward with asset management BC is been really effective.
Thank you. Councillor Audio.
Thanks, Your Worship, through to CAO. I'm just wondering about the grant itself, CAO, like, is it a competitive process? How assured are we of getting the grant? And if we don't, do we have a plan B?
My understanding is that it's not the most oversubscribed grant. Ms. Jansen had high confidence in our ability to secure the grant, and if not, we would maintain the current scope and advance through the project with our $10,000 budget, foregoing some of the additional value add of like an extended in-person engagement and consulting to help us advance this more quickly.
Thank you.
And just sorry, from the report, is our sense that it would dovetail, ideally would dovetail with OCP development?
If I can, Your Worship and Council, the report and my conversations with Ms. Jansen suggest that, and what has been planned for 2024 is that community conversation about community levels of service. I wish I had the timeline handy at the moment. That is either a conversation and consultation in tandem or coinciding at the same time as we're working on official community plan, or it becomes an integrated deliverable in what the OCP consultant would then help us advance as well. Regardless, it's going to require staff time and direct staff engagement on that working group. And there are just different levels of thought of where that engagement might happen best. So we need to continue working on that.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, because we may find that moving in parallel works better, and there is a natural point where it integrates with the other versus trying to do it at the front end. That makes sense to me, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Ramsey.
Your worship, it's not a question, just a thought here. Fully appreciate the depth and amount of work that will go into this, and looking forward to the output of this also. If there is anything that I shouldn't use the word concern, but I think a gap here would be that the output from this work may not be available for us for the 2024 budget cycle. That's the only risk that I'm foreseeing. Like, what kind of service level we need to provide, can we calibrate it? Those kind of questions that are so important during our budget session may not be available. That would be my only concern here.
And that is a fair comment, not least given that Director Burdett has suggested budget 2024 budget deliberations will start in short order. So that is a fair comment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And a fair concern across the board.
And OCP timeline too, Your Worship. Sorry, I apologize. I thought I had read somewhere that it was maybe sometime around summer this year that we would kick off the engagement portion of OCP, but now I'm seeing January 2024, so not very clear on the timeline here, because that's another crucial piece of the puzzle.
It is, yeah. Mr. Barnes.
If I can, Your Worship, if memory serves me well, defining the scope of work and deliverables and issuing the RFP was the 2023 deliverable for the official community plan, and selecting the consultant or the external consultants or firm that we work with to deliver it. And then based on what we secure, that timeline could shift sooner, could shift later, but developing our scope of work, establishing the working group, and then awarding contract is what we've budgeted for and projected to deliver this fiscal.
Thank you. Any other questions? On that note, I'll ask Mr. McCall to read the recommendation.
Certainly. The staff recommendation is that council supports the application to the UBCM Asset Management Planning Grant Program jointly with the City of Cranbrook for the Levels of Service and Leadership in Asset Management Training Project, and that the overall management of the grant be provided by the City of Fernie.
Moved by Councilor Audie Kelly, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. That takes us to item 9.4, the 2023 Fernie Trails Alliance Bike Park Plan, with a report from our Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities, Mr. Logan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I don't have a PowerPoint prepared, so you're going to be stuck with my talking head. So this is very similar to the dog park plan I brought forward to council a couple weeks ago. Just a bit of a background. We created a formal agreement with the FTA in July of 2022. This agreement was the first of its kind. I can't emphasize enough the benefit to the community having these service agreements in place with community partners. The FTA basically provides maintenance to the jumps with expertise that we don't have in-house. They're actively organizing improvements and working with us on signage and those types of things to reduce risk. So again, I want to emphasize that partnering agreement and the benefits to the community. So part of what they're proposing as work this year, you'll notice in the report, I did provide a little bit information on a RMI funding project where they're going to be redoing some jump lines and the launch area. You see that work underway. The dirt park's closed this week and next, I believe. So that's separate from the plan I'm bringing forward today to council. But some of the work plan for 2023 includes the signage project that I mentioned before. The signage has been purchased in 2022 And the plans to work with the FTA in implementing it, installing it after that work's done, restructuring the site. As well as we're installing some lines, the FTA is spearheading that. We're also addressing some irrigation at the volleyball courts at the same time. So the city's contribution to that, providing money towards some equipment rental and materials. And that's basically totaling between $3,000 and $4,000, likely going to be less. And then we're also working to help move some debris piles, some rocks, some logs, and we're using some in-house labor for that to assist with the work that's going on there right now. So again, all of this combined, it's very low impact to the city financially, and a lot of this was taken into account into the budget of 2023 that council has approved. And the in-kind totaling roughly $2,000, again, is a very good trade-off for the free labor we're getting from the FTA and volunteers in that operation of the bike park. So yeah, requesting council to endorse the plan and approve. However, I need to point out a bit of a mistake in my report. It was flagged by CEO Bornowski, and just reviewing some documents, I realized that I don't actually have to bring this to council. This plan can be approved by me, unlike the dog park society. So this report can be provided as information, or if you want to follow through with approval, then that's council's.
I guess we could discuss whether we should take that power away.
Right. Put yourself in a bit of a position. Thank you for that. Any questions from council? Councilor Artie.
Not really a question, just kudos to Director Logan. I know when I was part of the Leisure Service Advisory Board, Mr. Smith was really looking to make these types of community partnerships to benefit all, and great work, Director Logan, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Just out of curiosity, and I appreciate, I think we'll just receive this as information, Mr. Logan. We won't put you in that position. But I was curious, the kiosk, is it part of the signage budget? Like, it comes out of the RMI funding? How is that paid for? It wasn't clear to me, and I apologize if I missed it in the report.
So there's a few things going on there. Sorry, to answer your question, Your Worship. The signage specifically was for the jump lines, where we're creating a rating system similar to what Whistler does, as far as the progressive beginner to advanced jump lines. Part of that was to create a map, an overview map of the facility, and the intention was to put that on a facility sign. So the facility sign likely might come after some of that signage work is completed, because we won't have an overview of the new layout. Also, aside from that, there is an RMI funded project that will have a large map, but a full map of the city with areas in town, as that is a general staging and gathering hub. So that's a separate project, but there will be a standalone dirt park facility sign at the end of this that is pre-budgeted for.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a former FMBC president and somebody that's watched these dirt jumps evolve and stuff like that, and there was a lot of ambiguity around them, I am very happy to see all this progress happening. So thanks to Director Logan and the rest of the staff for making this happen. It's very exciting for our community.
I would agree, and not least of all now that they're all traveling in the same direction, so it reduces the risk of head-on collisions. I think that's a bit of a plus from my perspective. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Director Logan. We'll receive that as information and leave it in your capable hands to finalize.
Thank you.
Item 10 is correspondence. Anything catch anybody's eye that they'd like to comment on? Councillor Schusman.
Yeah, just a couple things. I definitely have heard a fair bit about the lack of availability at the pool. That's been sort of an ongoing complaint that I've been hearing a bit. So I just thought I'd mention that. I'm aware that we're dealing with staffing issues, but it's definitely something that the community isn't very happy about.
Well, thank you for raising that. I was asking specifically to the items and correspondence in the agenda.
My bad, sorry.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I would just ask Chief Morgan about the parade in Elkford. I asked this question before about the parade in Sparwood. And is this one we would historically have attended with the?
Yeah, we have in the past.
Okay.
So it's a matter of if myself or someone wants to volunteer to go ahead and join maybe.
I'm happy to participate. If I'm not going to suggest I could drive that Studebaker.
What's the date on that, sorry?
I'm
June 20.
July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1.
Oh, it's Canada Day.
Oh, well, we like we can do that anyway.
Yeah.
We'll have commitments here. Fair enough. Thank you. Never mind.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, then I'll move on to reports from council members. Councilor Schusman.
Oh, great. I'll just imagine that I said that other thing.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Councilor Nixon.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. You know, I too have been hearing a couple, I got another email just this afternoon in regards to the pool, and asking us to do better. I'm not sure if, what that means in the long term. Maybe through our OCP, we can look at the level of service there and determine what's gonna happen. Other than that, I was sad that I was unable to attend the equipment showcase put on by our staff. It was a very busy week. And then my last sort of comment was, it does seem like it was forever ago, and I do want to forget about it, but it was, I was so disappointed with the results of the RDEK meeting on May 12th. And I think that, you know, I had, when it went to public hearing, one of our fellow councillors here, who I'm not going to name, he said to me, the RDEK board has made up its mind. And I said, no, we're going to go to public hearing, and the people at Fernie are going to come out, and we're going to speak, and they're going to listen. And boy, was I wrong. And I told that councillor that I apologized, and I said, yeah, I was wrong. Many of the speeches from that directors on that day, and I give kudos to Mayor Milligan for his eloquent speech, were quite surprising and left me thinking that perhaps at the public hearing that included 243 participants in person, another 148 on Zoom, 59 opposition letters, and over 243 opposition letters in the RDEK package. I went through those the other day, and I was quite happy to see that a lot of the young people in this community had put their thoughts to paper and sent in emails or written letters. And I was, you know, I saw a lot of them on the weekend, and I was I thanked them for doing that. And I said, don't be discouraged, because as an elected official in Fernie, I think I tried to do as much as I could to amend this process, but I was unable to. And for those people, I'm not sure how disillusioned they feel, but I was feeling a little bit disillusioned. So if this public hearing, as Director Lizette said, if directors don't listen to public hearings, then maybe we need to change the process. So that was it. It was very disappointing. I haven't really thought about it too much. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ivey.
Yeah, I would also like to echo Councilor Nixon on your hard work, Your Worship, on the Galloway issue. Unfortunately, we didn't have control over the outcome. I wanted to say that I had gotten some correspondence about the bioswales So I'd like to touch base with staff on 9th. There's some concern that people have been planting flowers and they were ripped out and that it's unsightly. And so if we could get a little more information from staff, sorry to work for you, just on what Indigenous plants we're expecting those to be, and et cetera, and what kind of maintenance they might receive. Then on a much more fun note, we attended a little function at the library that Emma and staff put on, and saw some episodes of Parks and Recreation. And Councillor Shoesmith has volunteered that we can throw him in the river.
I do need that.
So we may be holding him to that. And we thought it might be fun to recreate that, the photo op of the Parks and Recreation. And that's about it.
Councillor McCaskill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not very much to report. I too very much appreciated the library staff's effort to create some engagement opportunities for us. I thought it was very good. Just as a follow-up comment, and just to support Councillor Nixon here a little bit, it's not a process problem. We actually have far too few opportunities to have the public in the room and have the conversation directly with elected officials. And I think that the public hearing process should be sacrosanct. It wasn't the process. In this case, it was the people who took the information from the process and made a decision. And the decision was primarily guided by the thinking of the previous 30 years. And it is not caught up to the thinking that modern, intelligent, responsible communities building for the future are doing. It just hasn't caught up to that. Let's hope that in upcoming future, we'll have different people with more enlightened views and who are willing to walk a less well-trod path to get us to a place where a community can support a lot more diverse options than just extremely rich people. So I think it's easy to fault the process, but in this particular case, you can't always say that the process is bad when you lose and the process is good when you win. That's not really fair. I do think that the public hearing process is incredibly important in our community, and I'm really glad it happened. And I agree, that was a challenging outcome, but I don't think it was the process. I really think in this particular case, it's the mindset of the people that came to it. So. I don't want to be individually critical of them, but I just feel like it's a carryover from an older age when the solution is just build more houses. And that's just not, we've tried that. We've tried that for a generation and it hasn't worked, so we have to do better.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I did quote you in my remarks, although I didn't attribute it to you. So you can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Yeah, and to be fair, I stole that too.
Councillor Ramdas, thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just the Galloway hearing was definitely something that was in a lot of our minds in the last couple of weeks, but Councillor Nixon eloquently said everything about the process and the outcome of the public hearing. I just want to focus on the positives here. I think the biggest positive out of the whole conversation was it brought together people from different parts of the society, diverse opinions. Everyone was in it on this particular issue. And also the leadership that came from yourself, Your Worship, and also many community leaders was just outstanding. Really proud of that. And just now, after Councillor McIsaac's comment there, yet another positive that I am seeing out of this is the amount of young people who are engaged on this. I'm just hoping that there will be a lot more competition for rural districts, right? Like for RDK, Area A, Area B, all those different areas where when you look at some of those elections there, it's like not very competitive. Like us here around the table, we ran really competitive elections, or we put in the hard yards to win our seat here, whereas when I look at it from an RDK context, it's like, just one or two people and a low turnout. So I'm just hoping that because of this particular, I wouldn't want to say movement, but this particular issue, it will encourage a lot more young people to take politics seriously and run for public offices.
Agreed, thank you very much, that's a great observation.
Thank you. Kudos to all staff and Ms. Dressler and the rest of the library for the, I totally just gapped on the name last week. Well, thank you, Local Government Week. The equipment display, my daughter was absolutely thrilled to sit in all of the vehicles. She was not happy though when I told her she wasn't allowed to sit in the driver's seat of the running fire truck. As it was being, the ladder was coming down. I too was quite disappointed on the Galloway outcome, but to Councillor Ramadas's point, the positive of it was seeing all of the young people engaged, and there were a number of young people, kids even, speaking up at the public hearing who got over their stage fright to get up there and speak in front of a lot of adults, which is a big thing for them. And that's about it.
Thank you. Well, I too want to thank staff and council for their participation last week in Local Government Week activities. I really enjoyed that, and echoing my comments in my opening remarks and to Mr. Heiser and to Chief Morgan, the participation of your staff and the engagement of those folks is fantastic. Like, they were really engaged with the community and had great conversations with all of them, and of course Ms. Lyon with her waste stream display that attracted numerous children. It was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it was good. Honestly, it was good to get to know those folks on a personal level, so I really appreciate that opportunity. A lot has been said, of course, about Galloway, and I won't belabor the point. I appreciate the comments that have been made, and it is interesting. I do hope that folks stay engaged on this and other files as we go forward here as a community, because the level of engagement was incredibly encouraging, and I felt there's a level of cynicism on the elected official side that is not helpful in processes like these. So hopefully we can build that sort of positive momentum as a community and be a leader, as MLA Shapika said, in terms of determining the future of our region collectively, not just as a single community, but the region generally, so that we can have better outcomes in the future. So that's all I'll say on that, and I do thank everybody for their support. On that note, we'll move, I'll ask for, I can read this one if you like. A resolution to close with the following staff recommendation: that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 90.1 sub E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. A mover. Councillor Schussman, seconded by Councillor Audie Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We'll move to close, and I want to thank everybody who's attended this evening or is watching this after the fact. Thank you.